Welcome to Dose with Grace. I hope you're doing well and taking very good care of yourself. Today, I would like to touch upon a topic we mostly brush under the carpet. Something that we all feel, we all express, but to varying degrees, and sometimes we feel very shy or bad about admitting it. Yes, I'm talking about a word that is very misunderstood and labeled as bad. So, I'm going to talk about anger. Yes, anger is an emotion, anger is an expression, and anger is also a state of mind. So it's also an adjective, a verb, and a state, a thing that we associate with. I'll use it in different ways to explain. He is showing anger. That is, I have anger. I'm experiencing anger. And, or, there is so much anger in this situation. So, this is how, in various forms, this word, this expression is seen around us. But more importantly, anger is what we all associate with. Anger is what we all cannot deny. At some point or the other, anger can make us feel dysfunctional, and at some point in life, it has been our greatest strength. Now, to understand anger, is the simplest way is to first be aware of its existence. That yes, anger does exist in my life. I am a person who at times does feel, understand, and express anger. I personally also have experienced this emotion to varying degrees in my life, right from identifying with it as a witness to full blown expression of rage, which is the most violent expression of anger. And therefore, I was very interested to delve into it and understand the taboo that is attached to it, as well as on the other side, the benefits of having a healthy expression of this emotion, or this kind of a rus, the navras that we have. Anger is one of them. So first of all, we very easily say anger is bad. So I don't want to have anger, or I have anger and I think that is one thing I want to get rid of. So first and foremost, it is almost impossible to get rid of anger completely. There is no one who doesn't feel anger at all. As much as I know, and I may be wrong, if there is an example, please do let me know in comments. But that example should be authentic, and you should have evidence that yes, what you're saying is true. So far, I don't know of anyone who is completely devoid of anger. But yes, there are people who know how to manage their anger very well. And most often we hear these expressions that anger is bad. So we label it under one motherhood statement that anger at any time, with anyone, under any circumstance, expressed is considered to be bad. There are also many theories that come from our Sanatan Dharma, that are associated with it, which state something like this, that if you once you express anger in the very in a very uncontrolled manner, then that anger can burn away all of your punyas, which means all of your good karmas. It can burn it away and you earn bad karma. So then what about those people who stand up for violations, who stand up for injustice, who stand up for a varying degree of misconduct or someone breaking their boundaries? So the best way to understand this is, just like there is a varying degree of every emotion, so is anger also in a range. So here, giving it a motherhood statement that anger is bad is the first misunderstanding. That's the stereotype or a misunderstanding that makes us prevent even delving into the right knowledge about understanding what is this emotion and how to fully integrate it within ourselves, because it will emerge. It is there, just like all the different emotions that emerge within us, this will also emerge. But how to integrate it in a healthy manner, in a balanced manner, and express it equally in a healthy and a balanced manner is what is the understanding. But that understanding comes through delving into it. But if something is labeled as taboo, you want to just brush it under the carpet. So that is why, as in the beginning of my talk I said, I'm going to talk about something that's a taboo, that's brushed under the carpet. Imagine a person, a man or a woman, or even a child or an old person who is expressing anger to varying degree, especially to a degree which is a little more volatile. What do we say? We say this person is out of their senses. They've lost control of themselves. We never say, oh my God, this is such a wonderful thing to get inspired from and I want to absorb this and learn from it. Whereas if a person is sitting in a shanti, is very peacefully talking to you, you want to be inspired by that. So even though it's a very strong emotion, we generally don't give it a very high value in as a virtue. Now, once we remove this taboo and a judgment around it, now we move into this next phase of understanding anger. So like I said, what about those people who have someone who's behaving in a way which is not a healthy behavior? So the natural expression of anger comes out. So is it bad? Because will it burn your punyas? Now here, one needs to understand that when you are expressing anger, it actually is the energy of Mars that rises within us, the energy of fire that rises within us. That is the energy that gives us the real energy. When we say someone has a very high energy aliveness in themselves, that means they have good energy of Mars. In the time when we feel angry, when we are expressing our anger, that's the time when the energy of Mars is really high. So that's an energy. There's no judgment about it. However, when we attach a feeling of hatred with that highly rising energy, that's when it becomes bad. The right word, English word is hatred, but I think the right word would be grina. Grina is a word That's why Hindi is such a beautiful language, or rather, Sanskrit is such a comprehensive language that the translation to any other language dilutes the true essence and the wholesomeness of the meaning of the word. So, grina is a word which is a mixture of hatred, um, and avoidance, and uh, repulsion. So, hatred, avoidance, repulsion mixed together is called grina or dvesh. So, with anger, if that gets mixed, then that anger burns all your good karmas or your punyas. But if hatred or uh, uh, the sense of grina, the mixture of all three, the sense of um, that deep hatred is removed from it, even at the time of being angry, then that anger doesn't have that effect. Then that anger is sattvic anger. So, for example, if there is a behavior which is a wrong behavior, morally wrong behavior, not according to just your judgment, but in according to the right and wrong of being a human, of being a good existence, if that is on the wrong side of it, then if you rise up to it, then it is called as a sattvic anger. And there is no grina attached to it, which means there is no hatred, there is no repulsion, and there is no sense of uh, deep kind of vengeance attached to it. A simple example would be if a mother has been constantly reminding a child to not do something while she is all very thoroughly occupied with her own chores, and out of maybe curiosity or out of ignorance, a child continues doing that repetitively and is not even aware of repercussions or consequences of what the child is doing. So if mother keeps reminding the child that this can be very dangerous for you or it can be very harmful, but the child is just loving the fun of it without realizing it can have severe consequences later. Maybe they're playing with a wire, or they're getting too close to fireplace or something, and then suddenly the child inflicts upon themselves little bit of a injury or a wound or something. Now at this time, the mother will be in the state of anger, will feel very upset. If she feels very upset and she goes and pulls the child away and maybe slaps a child out of fury in that moment. Now think of that sudden, that exact moment when a mother is really slapping a child. In that fraction of a millisecond, what is her thought process? It's the thought process is of protection. The intention behind the act is of protection, is of care, is of fear of losing the health of the child, and somewhere the pain of seeing the child in the state of hurt. With that, whatever is done, and then instantly then she embraces the child, and maybe later on even apologizes to the child and then explains to him. But in that moment of rage, what she did, there was only, what was the emotion, what was the intention, rather, what is the right word for it is bhav. Again, I would say the Hindi language and the Sanskrit language is so paripurna, so wholesome, that it's very difficult to find the loose translations to match with the wholesomeness of the language. But anyway, I'll try. So The bhav is very, very important, because what we say and what we do carries a lot of karma, but greater the karma is what we think, what is behind it, the thought, the intentions, the bhav behind it. So here the action showed very much swiftness and energy. Maybe there was a lot of shouting from the mother. So from the distance it looks like, oh, she's angry. The child will also feel, my mother is now angry. But she saved him. She protected him. And the intention when that action was being done, maybe it was for a fraction of a second, the intention behind it was of care, protection, and healing, removing the child from the hurt. That does not does not burn any of your punyas. That doesn't. So this is a very, very important thing for us to learn, where your anger is coming from. If the intention is not to hurt, if the intention is not to reduce someone's happiness, if the intention is not to give pain to the other person or the other thing or to the situation, but if your anger is to care for, if your anger is towards standing up to help, if that anger is giving you that energy to help, to protect, to care, and to save, then that anger is actually a sattvic anger. Then you have transmuted that animal behavior that rises on its own without your knowing. Just by looking at something, you can be having this emotion. You're not calculating that emotion, but you're having. But if you have learned to transmutate it to a better intention, towards sattvic intention, to a intention towards goodness, then even your action is going to be leading to a positive result. And that anger is not something that can burn your punyas or that can take away your good karmas. In fact, that anger helps to break a pattern of karmas. It helps you transmute a pattern that probably was coming in your life again and again, to get up and burn that pattern through this positive action. Another thing I would like to add here, apart from understanding that what is a sattvic anger and what is a tamasic anger. Tamasic anger, obviously, I already explained what is sattvic anger. So tamasic anger is where there is this intention of hatred or the intention of jealousy, or the intention of giving someone pain or agony, or hurting someone, belittling them. These are tamasic anger, and of course it does burn away all your punyas and takes you to much lower state of mind. Now another thing, whenever you experience anger, to begin with, how to know how to transmute this to the sattvic anger. The first step is to tell yourself, whenever you experience anger, to tell yourself that a part of me is feeling this emotion. A part of me is feeling this emotion. When we say I am angry, we become anger. It doesn't become our totality. Yes, a part of me can feel anger, can express anger, but there is a whole part of me that is happy, that is peaceful, that is wise, that is loving, that is caring, that is light, that is loving, and that is capable of being sensitive and taking care of myself. So when we tell ourselves that a part of me is angry, we are not only just validating the real emotion that we are feeling, the reality of what we are showing even to the outer world, which is a state of anger. We are accepting it, we are integrating that into ourselves, but at the same time, integrating the reality. A part of us is angry, not the entirety of us is angry. And that is reminders to ourselves in that state again, or maybe not in that state, when we are slightly cooled down, going back to that moment and remembering, reflecting upon it, and reminding ourselves again and again that a part of me was angry at that moment. A part of me felt the anger. A part of me expressed the anger. A part of me went into rage. Therefore, we give ourselves that ability to see that there was another part which may not be the exact opposite, was not very peaceful, but maybe another part which was another range that was happy, in gratitude, powerful, lovable, in bliss. A part of us was still having all the other emotions as well. So then we know only this much of me was angry. And so it's so easy to transmute that part to sattvic. Anything done mindlessly without having the right intentions can lead to a may not be good. For example, even being peaceful for no reason, having no understanding of what is peace. We can be peaceful doing nothing, not putting in efforts, not doing our chores, not doing our duties, not trying to stand up on our own feet, not being independent, but we are peaceful. If that is the reason we give to as an excuse to doing nothing, then even being peaceful can become harmful. So having the right intentions is extremely important. And hence, even when you're angry but with the right intentions, which are sattvic intentions, for the sake of goodness, for the sake of welfare, if you are, then it becomes equally beneficial. The example of sattvic anger would be many people in our history. Rishi Durvasa was a great saint, a great learned rishi who taught us how to express anger and transmute it to sattvic anger. Shri Krishna in Dwapar Yuga came in the form of human. Swayam Narayan himself came down into this earth in the body of a human being to teach us how to display, how to feel, how to act upon, and how to display sattvic anger. He also did punish a lot of people, but then there was no element of hatred in that. This is the transmutation of anger for the welfare and by not stereotyping as bad. Sri Ram also showed us an example of how to express sattvic anger. And the planet Mars, the greatest representation of planet Mars, is Sri Hanumanji. Sri Hanumanji is the greatest example of sattvic anger. How to use your anger, the energy of anger, in the most positive and sattvic way, and as just like a service to his god, service to Sri Narayan ji, service to the avatar of Vishnu, Sri Ram. Opposite to that, the worst example of the martial energy, the anger, is another demon, which is Bhasmasur. To know more about the story of the extreme of anger, on one side, which is negative, tamasic, and full of hatred and vengeance and negative energy, is Bhasmasur, a demon, and the example of very, very pious use of anger, pious use of this martial energy, and the right expression of anger is, the example is Sri Hanumanji, the way he served God in expressing anger, in the way it benefited not only the people but also it showed to us the roadmap of how to learn to be using this, one of the emotions that we are blessed to have in this world. We have our wonderful examples in our own history to learn from. So, learn about these people and understand that life is very simple. It needs a little bit of introspection, a little bit of reflection, a little bit of reading, gaining knowledge, and then absorbing and applying that knowledge in our lives. Tell me more about how do you feel now about anger. I'm sure at least now you don't put yourself down every time you feel you had an episode where you did express your anger. And remember, next time, whenever you express anger, you should not judge yourself and just tell yourself, a part of me expressed anger, and I'm happy to acknowledge it, integrate it, accept it, and I'm ready to transmute this anger just like Hanumanji, just like Sri Ram, just like Sri Krishna, just like Rishi Durvasa, into sattvic anger. Thank you so much for watching. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.